Toby. We're here. We're here. We've got this thing going. I was really excited to have you on. So thank you so much for taking the time. I hope that the process of getting on wasn't too convoluted.
No, nothing more than making sure your application was approved in our approved app list. But other than that, it was
Yeah.
straightforward. Stephen,
Tell,
it's
tell
great
everybody
to be
about
here.
what a good C3PO and MSP does when when they need to install a new piece of software.
But it's all good, and I appreciate it, Stephen. It's exciting to be here today and have a chance to chat and catch up and hear what's going on with you guys. And happy to chat about what's going on with me and with us. And just excited to be here, man.
Oh, yeah, seriously, thank you. Where was the last time we talked? I feel like it was at the was it at the MGM up in?
In Maryland, yeah, I
Yes.
think is where we talked personally. I know I talked to your team at KuiCon, and
Yeah.
we're at lots of the same shows
Hmm.
and love your stuff. So we talk a lot.
Yeah, we do talk a lot. That was a fun dinner. It was at that Mexican restaurant that had that really spice. What was that stuff that they had that like several of my team got, and we all kind of regretted it because it
I
was
don't.
like,
I passed over it. Like I used to be a hot and spice person, and
mm,
in my dotage, my old age, I steer clear of the super hot stuff. So
yeah,
I saw people sweating, but I didn't try it myself.
was it? I'm gonna have to go ask Philip on our team. Philip was the one who was like telling everybody to get it, and it was kind of violent. It was kind of violent.
Keeps you awake. It's like
Yeah.
coffee.
Okay. Like the first thing we have to get this out of the way. You got to tell us how long you've been growing that beard. We've got to know.
Okay, so there's two versions of beard. There's the pre-COVID beard, which used to be my catfish picture until recently when I updated my LinkedIn picture. Uh, and I've had that since high school. I could never get the mustache to connect, so it was more like a chin strap.
Yeah.
But as I got older, finally it connected. This is really the COVID beard, and once I had it, the grandkids like it, the kids like it. My wife's not as much a fan, but I do remind her sometimes you have to go through the briar patch to get to the raspberries. So, uh,
Oh my
so
dude.
the COVID beard's here to stay.
Yeah. So I never had facial hair. When my in-laws, they like clean shaven people, and my wife was kind of raised with that too, and then I kind of, yeah, it's like the COVID era. I started just letting it go and see what I could grow, because my father can't grow anything. Barely leg hairs can he grow, kind of thing. And so
You're
like,
doing great.
hey, hey, it's better than I ever thought it would be. And but same experience. My wife absolutely hates trying to get some smooching. It's just too much. It's just too much for her. So I'm pretty lonely.
I
Just
have
kidding. I'm
moved to
just kidding.
mustache wax though, so sometimes I wax it, especially for shows. At a show you want to stick in people's memory so that when you call, they remember you.
Yes.
So sometimes I'll wax it up to get that memory anchor.
Yeah. I think your LinkedIn profile picture has a little bit of that going on, doesn't
Just
it?
yeah, a little
Just a
bit of
tad.
touch is there. Yeah.
Just a tad. Hey, everybody, go look at Tobias Musser's LinkedIn page. You'll see the wax. It's kind of excellent. It's kind of excellent. You remind me of did you ever see Robin Williams in Hook?
Yeah. I love Robin
I
Williams.
hope that's not too
Maybe
offensive.
somewhere in my back of my head, I mean, I think I'm nicer than that character, but
You are,
that's
yeah, you're definitely nicer than that guy. But it's the curl. You got to get that going. I don't know how hard that is to get it going. I probably will never get there. I can't grow anything past like
listen.
my lips.
Any decade now, just leave it alone. Give it a couple decades.
Start anytime.
Anytime, anytime.
Anytime. Yeah, maybe by the time I'm on my deathbed, I'll get there, because it just does not grow like yours. That looks awesome. Well, Toby, my friend Toby, I really appreciate you coming on, and I did want to just, again, I say this every episode, that I have a heart for people in our industry who are looking for opportunities for help, looking for people to trust. There's a lot of snake oil. We talk about this all the time, and you're definitely one of the names out there that when I think of people in our industry that are actually helping people, achieve things, what it's not just CMMC, but even just general MSP services and things like that. You and MNS Group and Frank and all those guys, I feel like have just been kind of a rock for a lot of people. And I just have a heart for people to not just look at you guys as talking heads that get them things done, but I want them, I want, like I was saying before we started the recording, I just want people to be able to trust you more and have a little bit more of knowing that there's an empathy there. Like you went into this business for a reason. And you know, there's a lot of other things you could have probably done and made money in and provided for your family through, but this was it. And you've spent a lot of your time talking at shows and going to dinners, eating spicy food with other people to, you know, build relationships in this particular industry. So I really love that. And I want people to, you know, get to know you more. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to kind of go back as far as we can, because I think that's part of what makes Toby the person that he is today. You know, how did you grow up? Where did you grow up? Did you have a lot of brothers and sisters? Did you play nice and not so nice? Did you, you know, where'd you go to school, education, anything like that? You know, as long as you want, you know, tell us your background and what made you the person that you are today, supporting the people that you do today.
Yeah, so that's a fascinating question, and we have a little time, but let's do it this way. Ultimately, I grew up on a farm, tossing hay bales, milking cows. I wasn't. My family didn't own the farm. We lived next to the farm. So, you know, I grew up in a very rural area. And there's a certain have somebody's back that exists on the farm. You know, the work has to get done. If somebody's sick, if they're down, if something's going on up at the house or in the stables or whatever, you jump in and you do whatever to make sure the whole thing keeps going.
Right.
And it's not to say, you know, I moved out of that. I went to school in Chicago. My dad was a pastor and wanted me to be a pastor, so he sent me off to Moody Bible Institute. I did not become a pastor. I love talking about theology and philosophy and all those types of things. But I launched my first computer company back there so that I could eat on the weekends, which weren't covered by my school bill. So it was back then it was Musser Enterprises, and I would just train people how to do things in WordPerfect, in the WordPerfect suite. That's ancient times for computer world. But fast forward a little bit, came back from Chicago, got married young, and had a bunch of kids, and really wanted to keep running my own business. But I found that it was really difficult to go from one person to any more unless you had like a really trusted partner. So I've gone through like several iterations of trying to find the right partner. And I guess this is business somewhere between 18 and 20 that I've owned or operated.
Wow.
And I've had about a 50-50, good partners and partners that were, you know, difficult to work with. The path to this particular seat really came in 2006 when I separated from a partner. And I was the IT department and they were a marketing company. And we had been doing learning management, an LMS system that was video based. And, you know, the training I had in school was originally to be talent, right? To be a news announcer, which probably would not have been great. But, well, now that I have the beard, maybe.
Yeah, it would fly. It would fly.
But I love, you know, I love video editing. I loved working with stuff, and we were making training material. We separated, and my team, the technology team, which is MNS Group, Managed Network Services Group, was actually one of the branches of that company. So I left with that team, and we had a contract doing support for Comcast and for Dow Chemical, but we didn't have like fully billable hours. And I hated doing hourly billing because often I would run into situations where somebody would be like, hey, I'm curious, like I feel like these hours are more and I'd like you to take some off. And that takes up a lot of time and mental energy.
Oh my goodness.
And it sets you up right for trust issues with the client, right? Even if you make the smallest mistake, and so I really struggled. I was like, how can I run a support business and not have to deal with hourly? So I went to car insurance and life insurance and looked at their algorithms for claims data. And so what I like to say is I accidentally became an MSP. I wasn't intending to have a fixed monthly fee. I was trying to figure out mathematically what is the claims data against my help desk and consulting services, and how can I come up with a reasonable fee where I can have predictable profit, pay people decent salaries, and the client can budget for service. And so that's how we accidentally became a managed service provider. I learned afterwards, I ran into Gary Pico, who's like pretty famous in the MSP world, and learned that I had sort of in parallel become an MSP with monthly recurring revenue, is how they always talk about it.
Yeah.
So let me fast forward to 2015. In 2015, we're running the MSP and we're taking all comers. We're doing commercial, we're doing government, we're doing federal government, we're doing
healthcare,
military, DOD, DOW, all that kind of stuff. And at the time, we had a policy to rip out any software that was not US based. And one of our defense contractors had Kaspersky. And I'm like the engineer in the Hawaiian shirt. And back then I had hair, I had an afro, I'm wearing flip-flops. I thought like I'm too cool for school. I don't have to do any of the business things. I'm just the engineer guy. And I'm in there, we're ripping out this stuff. And I'm working on the server. And we were running just packet traces. Ethereal was the program at the time. And I noticed after we uninstalled Kaspersky from the server that it left the DLL behind. And that DLL was just like pinging Northern Europe. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. But I had a friend who was starting his own company, but was also a weekend cyber warrior for the NSA. And I called him up and I'm like, you should tell somebody, right? I don't know. Get the information to the right person. Well, it turns out that I and maybe about 18 other people or companies all kind of saw this issue with Kaspersky in a similar window. And so met up with my friend, and turns up I got a gold challenge coin from the director of the NSA, and my friend Kyle went on to launch Huntress.
Oh my goodness, Kyle Hansloven.
Yeah. So he's the one who helped me get the message into the right person, and I got that cool challenge coin, and he went ahead and launched Huntress. I think I'm user number 3 or 4 of Huntress.
Wow.
And he's a brilliant guy, amazing, and has his unicorn now, so that's awesome. But we then we started getting all these referrals to government contractors and to DoD clients. And so I'd like to claim that we had this brilliant session and we figured we're going to choose a vertical for the Department of Defense. It happened to us, right? Because we tried to do a good job and then people came to us. And so when 2017 came along, and we started sending out spreadsheets with 110 items on the spreadsheet with a checkbox. Yes, I'm doing it. No, I'm not. Like that was the level of maturity at that time for us. So we got involved with CMMC, or really, 7012, D4 7012 from the beginning. So I'm going to pause a second and rewind. So that gave sort of the story from like the technical, what happened in the business.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have 8 kids. I have 2 grandchildren. My family is the reason that I'm working hard and trying to give them opportunities that maybe I didn't have as easy a path. You asked me about school. I mentioned I did go to school for a while. I'm one of those guys who's gone to college 3 times and never had a degree because I keep getting distracted or take classes. And, I drop out. I'll take technical training. I think I was one of the first master CNEs for Novell back when it was Novell 3, right?
This guy.
I mean, very old, right? Or Microsoft MCSE. I like that kind of stuff. I love to learn. I'm endlessly curious. When I took over and really took over MNS fully, I started reading Harvard Business Review every month because I wanted to learn, how do you run a business, and like, what are the important things in the business world? What are they thinking about? What things are they rehashing? What's tried and true? And I was running that business and several others. And I just wanted to make sure I was doing a great job. Ultimately, my employees were trusting me to take care of them and their families, and I didn't want to fall short on that trust. And so sort of the idea of like investing in yourself and learning, for anybody out there who is, listen, all my kids have gone to college. Thank God. I'm happy to have been able to help them and they've gone there. But I didn't have the brain capacity, the mindset, the energy to do that. Like, I'm too short of an attention span.
I just didn't have the discipline.
Yeah, well, that's probably what I'm saying. Just to make it sound nicer, man.
Sorry, didn't mean to throw you under the bus there.
No, it's true. It's true. There's some things, but we're wired. Each of us is wired to have discipline in certain areas. Like, I've seen guys who tell me I can never finish a college class, but they can sit down and play League of Legends for 36 hours straight on a new drop, right?
That's
So
discipline.
right, so it depends. They have to have a passion.
Yeah.
But in investing in my family and in the business and caring about my employees, naturally I'm wired, like, I really like people. In fact, the hardest thing for me in business is when I love an employee but they actually can't do the job, and I end up like keeping them, hoping I can find a spot for them. And I learned, later on, that that's actually kind of cruel, because you're not giving them an opportunity to go somewhere where they could really succeed, and you're like wasting their time and yours trying to make it work. I mean, it's so nuanced and messy.
Yeah.
Humans, right?
Yeah.
But that led me to say, why are we doing stuff? Like, we started using something called EOS, Stephen, the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Yep.
And it brings a lot of discipline on understanding your why and what are your key motivators and all of those things. And I realized that now that we are all taking care of government contractors, our ultimate why was that there's a warfighter out there risking their lives so that we can talk about how to make money. I mean, that sounds crass, but that's really what's happening, right?
Right.
We're defending the country by defending these small businesses and making sure they're secure.
Right.
And, it's hard for people to understand that sometimes. New employees, I always give them the hot dog story, which my team hates it because they've heard it so many times. Why does a hot dog vendor need CMMC, or why do they have to protect CY and FCI? In the in the age of AI and big data and tracking, if a vendor has 100 hot dogs every weekend they sell to the base, and it jumps to 10,000 hot dogs, that's actionable troop movement intelligence for the enemies of our country. Or cleaning supplies, paper towels, Windex, like things that you never would have thought of as risks to our national security. Innocuous things now are actual real risks. Right, pizzas, right?
Yeah, Pizzagate. Yeah.
I still, knowing that, I'm sure there's some smart person inside the Pentagon who's like, I know everybody in country X is going on vacation this weekend. Let's order 10,000 pizzas just to screw up their vacation because they'll all rush back.
Yeah. What was it? What was it? Hexeth said like a couple of weeks ago that he like now purposely orders pizzas at random times to just throw it off.
Just to throw it off, right? It's a great idea.
It was that big of a deal.
That's
because like all these
where the
people
idea
coming in and
right.
having these big meetings and ordering a bunch of pizzas, that's actually like can be pretty sensitive information.
Yeah.
That's so
absolutely. So I mean, that's our why, and that's what drives what we do now. So when CMMC first came out, we almost went out of business in 1.0. We put all this money into training people, and we had some brilliant people who, when they went to 2.0, said, I can't unlearn all this stuff. Like, it's going to be mashed up in my head. And they actually left and went to other engineering jobs. And so we had to rebuild the team under 2.0. And thank God we have an MSP that has reoccurring revenue, and we have other consulting. It's been a long slog in CMMC world to get to where we're permitted to do the services which we want to do, which is secure contractors by assessing them and allowing them to understand where they need to improve. I know I bounced all over there, and maybe I didn't go as deep as you wanted, other than saying milking cows and throwing hay bales is where I started. But
well, I mean, to be honest with you, as much I could get myself in trouble with how much I would love to talk about theology and philosophy. Like, and that's the thing is, like, I find when people know that there's this personal element to you that is beyond just the nuts and bolts of what you do on a day to day, they trust what you do on the day to day more. That's how I kind of anecdotally feel. But I wanted to ask you something because I resonate with this. And I think whether you're an MSP or an OSC, or you're not even involved in contracts that have DFARS or contracting at all. Maybe you're just a small mom and pop shop that does, whatever and it's totally commercial, no government ties, and you have an MSP, whatever just business in general. You said something about you love people. I'm right there with you. I would go crazy if I was on my own all the time. That's why we're doing the podcast. This is like a passion of mine, is just yapping with people. You love people, and it's hard to essentially separate the personal from the business mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I've experienced that. Like, I worked for IntelliGRC and the parent company of IntelliGRC, Tiber Creek Consulting, now Tiber Creek AI. And, I left to go help a friend, who's, he's the owner of Patch My PC, and they were implementing some cybersecurity and compliance stuff. And I went to go help them with some of that stuff. And, I had a really hard time. I love those guys dearly. I grew up with a lot of those guys. And because of family circumstances and certain financial elements and just general things that just life got in the way, I ended up having to leave. But I had such a hard time separating the two. And I feel like I'm the same way. Like if I've often thought about, 20 years into the future, if I were to start my own business type thing, how in the world would I ever separate the personal from the business? So like, what was it that you talked about this guy that maybe you kept on and kept on and kept on, and you said it was kind of cruel because you're holding them back from actually finding what they're good at and what they're passionate about, kind of thing. Like what was it that was kind of the most eye-opening thing for you that's helped that? Because I feel like I would struggle immensely with that. Like I'm very personal with our team here at Intelli.
Yeah. So, my dad worked at New York Life Insurance Company for many years at a corporate level. And to answer your question, I'm going to give you like some anecdotes first, and then I'll get to your answer.
Yeah.
He told me about a firing speech he heard another manager give, and the speech went something like this: Stephen, it's wonderful in our lives when we find times and things that we really love and we excel at, and also when we find out things that we're not as good at, because it really allows us to focus on our strengths and our highest and best use of ourselves. And I think we've identified an area, Stephen, that's not the highest and best use of yourself. And we're going to give you the opportunity to go and explore the highest and best use of your abilities somewhere else.
Nice. That's awesome.
Like, whoa, like, that you're like, wait a second. Anybody who would hear that would be like, wait, am I getting a compliment? Am I getting like, you don't know what's happening, right?
It's so confusing.
Right? It's so confusing. Anyway, so my dad's advice to me was like, don't do that. Like, just tell people what the deal is. And it was around the time that he shared that story with me because I was struggling with this. And he was like, he gave me the advice that I think he took. I think he said he heard it from one of the leaders of GE. That if an employee is a bad hire, that it's mostly the responsibility of the company that hired them. That having a great job description up front, understanding what success looks like, having excellent onboarding so the employee knows that what you told them before you hired them is what they're actually going to do, and then checking in really frequently, especially in that first 90 days, and asking the question, is the job that you are doing the job that you expected to be doing? Because if you identify it in that first 90 days, a lot of times you can fix it.
Yeah.
But if you let it go, you don't ask those questions, even the smallest misalignment between the jobs that you offered and then the job the person is doing, in some subtle way communicates a lack of integrity. Not intentionally, right? It's not like people are trying to lie, but the employee somewhere goes, this isn't exactly what they said. And there's two choices. Either they don't know enough about their business or they haven't spent the time in their business to devote for that accuracy in the job description.
Right.
Could be, right? Happens to lots of smaller businesses. It's terribly difficult to have time to work on this stuff.
Yeah.
Or that they did just, hey, post that job again. It's not quite the same, but we'll switch them once they get in here. That stuff's kind of toxic. So that on the front end, that's how we moved to fix it. But often what I share with people is if you want to move up in your career, you have to be sure that other people can do what you're doing, because we can't promote you if there's no one to do the thing that you're doing.
That's a really good point. If there's
right? And
nobody else
lots of
to fill your shoes, then you're stuck, buddy.
right, and lots of people that I ran into through the years were trying to defend or hold knowledge so that they, in their mind, were preserving their own intrinsic value in the position.
Mm.
Like, I'm Bob and I know how to do the thing with the widget. And I'm not going to tell Nancy, who just got hired, because I don't want them to, like,
I want to be replaceable.
right, right. But in effect, actually, all humans should desperately want to be replaceable so that they can move closer and closer to the thing that they're best at. I do like that phrase, the highest and best use of somebody's time and abilities.
Hmm.
And that's what we want for people. So I know I just bounced. I did a bunch of squirrels, as we call them in EOS. But when it comes back to like
Red
that,
flag.
yeah, right. When it comes back to that idea of it actually being an act of kindness, there's a question in EOS, a set of questions. You know, do they get it? Do they want to do it? And can they do it? Do they have the capacity to do it? And if the person doesn't get it, want it, and can do it, if they fail in any of those, then you need to quickly move them out of that position. And by using that language with other people, instead of I'm judging you to be a failure, so you're being fired, which is what a lot of people hear, right? Somehow you failed, or I don't like you, or whatever narrative story they tell in their heads. You want to correct the narrative because you want to leave them in the best emotional state to succeed moving forward. And the best way to do that is, can you do it? Oh, yeah, I can. Do you want to do it? I don't really like this job. Are you smart enough? Do you have the capacity? Are you strong enough? It depends on the job. Are you lifting boxes? Are you singing a song? Are you doing code? Whatever it is, do you have that capacity? And if you have two yeses and a no, it's always, this is not the right seat for you. Hopefully within a business that's growing, maybe there's a seat that does fit them. But if there isn't, you've equipped them with a set of questions they can ask themselves in any job, especially when they're applying for a job. Do I get it? Do I want it? And can I do it? A lot of people get it and can do it, and they end up in miserable jobs because they don't want it. The world's a hard place, man. Do you always get a job you want? Like, not a lot.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. That was what I was going to ask you is, like, Intelli's been in startup mode for a couple years now, right? And we've talked to a lot of smaller companies and other startups, and I know some of those guys. How do you handle situations where that is the goal? You want all three of those check marks, just from a pragmatic perspective, to be implemented, because that's going to make everybody the most happy, because they're going to be the most efficient, and they're also going to be happy. Like that, it makes everyone happy. But what happens in a role where, and I'm assuming part of your answer is more of an EOS type answer as well. How do you handle a situation where somebody has to wear multiple hats? So they're hired and they're doing something they love. They check all three of those boxes, right? They're competent to do it. They love it, right? I forget what the third one is. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Get it, want it, and can do it, or capacity to do it.
Yeah. So they understand it. They want to do it, and they can do it. They have the ability to do it. But at the same time, they have to do this other thing. But somebody's got to do it. It's the cleaning toilets gig while they're also a developer or whatever it is, like whatever the situation is. What do you say to a company that's struggling with that?
So I'll give you like my opinion mashed up with the EOS answer.
Yeah.
So EOS would say that you're going to map out a year and 3 years and maybe 10 years in your big, hairy, audacious goal, right? Your BHAG. And that's absolutely important, right? I'm not disagreeing with anything. And mapped with that, they would say, like, at each of those spots, what does the company look like? And when they say that, they're saying, like, what are the job positions? What are the descriptions? Who's going to do what? What I would say is, anytime somebody finds themselves in two roles, they should sort of have like maybe a mind map. It could be some sort of hierarchy. But any role, if the role is nascent, if it's at the beginning and it's not a full-time role, cleaning toilets is not a full-time role, right? Hopefully,
Hopefully, that's a
Right?
lot of toilets.
Could be a lot of
Or you
toilets.
got some people eating spicy food every day,
All
bro.
right. Well, I mean, so let's say it became so the company grows and you move into a building and there's 1,000 people in the building. Well, now you need somebody doing that full time,
Right.
right? And so you would map out and describe, all right, what does this person do? What is the title of the role? What does success look like? You map out the role, even if you're doing two of it. Without that mapped, you have not created a path for you ultimately to talk to investors or to your direct report or even to your peers about the need to split that role, to fund it,
Yeah.
or at least understand that it's going to degrade
Mm.
both roles. So at the very least, form the role, describe it, build it out, and you could even set triggers. We are going to all take turns emptying the trash.
Yeah.
Each week, Bob, John, Stephen, Toby, you each have a week. You're going to go to all the desks and empty the trash
Or you're
because
on
that's
call.
right.
Yeah.
Or you're
Whatever
on
it is.
call, right? You got your thing. At some point, there's a scale where doing that starts to take away from paying attention to other things. And maybe trash isn't the best example, but any type of shared responsibility,
Yeah.
you want to map, hey, when does the lever switch? When does it flip to this should be a human taking care of this, a whole human,
A whole
right?
human. Wow.
Or
Yeah.
an AI agent, right? If you want to go there, right?
Yeah.
Um, but job descriptions, again, jokingly, AI agents or humans, whatever, you still have to have a job description. And what does
Right.
success look like,
Yeah.
right? And what would the budget for that be? Because ultimately, your CFO or your accountant or bookkeeper, your visionary who's founded the company, they need to know that data to make sure that they're helping marketing and advertising choose the right price so that the price supports all of the necessary component roles. And if you, as often happens in startups, Stephen, and I know this from painful personal experience, there's a tendency of everybody to go into hero mode, right? Like we're just going to GSD, we're going to get it done. Everybody's going to jump
Yeah.
in. And there's a necessity for that to get to past a certain point. But sometimes you have to draw a line somewhere and think about it so that you move out of that or everybody will burn out and you'll keep people for 2 years and you'll lose that huge sunk cost of experience and knowing what it took to get here.
Yeah. That's so insightful because, you know, like one of the common examples that I see where somebody, just speaking practically, anecdotally, like there's a company that we know, they have internal IT guys. That's what they were hired for. That was their
Mm-hmm.
primary function. They love internal networking and support and administration. They love that element. But they're, because of the nature of their contracts, they are the ones most qualified to deploy code to production servers on the government's infrastructure or something like that. And so that's their side gig where they're spending maybe even 20, upwards of 20 hours a week doing that work, and they hate it. They just,
Other duties as assigned.
other duties as assigned. Exactly right. And they hate it. And so it's like, but your point is well taken, right? Like, you know, that should not be the goal. That should be a short term, it's got to get done, but don't leave it there. Don't leave it in the it's got to get done camp. Make that actually a functional element of your all's existence as a company and have a role dedicated to that so the people who don't want to do it don't have to do it anymore and they can excel at what they love.
Yeah.
Because from that EOS conversation, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. If you wanted to have an image of how this often works in companies, um, think if it was a 3-year cycle, it's like grow, grow, plateau, grow, grow, plateau.
Mm.
And the plateau year usually is a time to adjust the policies, procedures, practices, the job descriptions, the roles, and like figure out, okay, how do we next grow? Startups usually skip the plateau.
Hmm.
And a startup could be a 100-person company, right? Like they hit a new thing they're launching. In some ways, MNS Group thinks of itself as a startup because we just launched being an assessor. For years we were ready to, but the rule came out. Now we're growing that business and it's a lot of business really quick and it has to scale. When you skip the plateau year, if you don't know that it's supposed to be there, um, eventually it hits your profit margin.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of older business advice was wait till somebody's at 110%, they're overloaded, and then you hire a person to come in, and then suddenly they're down to 60%, and you work them both back up to 110%. I mean, the data shows that people are most effective when they don't exceed 83% utilization.
Really?
Well,
Where
because
is
you
that?
have to, so there's an article in Harvard Business Review from like 2014, I think, or 2015. If people Google it, I'm sure the AIs can find it for them.
Yeah, they
Uh,
will.
but there are, and I don't claim to be an expert. If somebody knows better numbers, please reach out to me so I can fix my business. Um, right,
Free
I wanna
consulting.
know. Right, I want to learn. And there's differences between service businesses and manufacturing and construction and things like that. But
Hmm.
there's a certain amount of utilization where um, people don't have enough downtime or thought time, recovery time to think about working on their job instead of in their job. It's really popular to tell business owners, don't work in your business, work on your business. Get people to
Yeah.
work in your business, right? And that idea really has to come down to all of us, whether it's in business or in your personal life. You have to have some introspection time, some planning.
Yeah.
Every week we get with the kids and the grandkids, and we have our brief family meeting. It's like 20 minutes max. Everybody tell us what's on your schedule for the next week. Any concerts the grandparents are supposed to go to, things like that. But just, the grandkids call me OT, old timer. If
Nice.
OT's going out of town to speak, he's not going to hang out with the grandkids on Wednesday night. So even in your personal life, you have to have some planning time. In somebody's career, so let's say they're a CMMC assessor, all right, and they're a lead assessor, and they're being told they need to do somewhere between 2 and 4 assessments a month, right? And it depends on your delivery style as to what you could pull off,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And how you break up activities and roles. Um, if you had that person working 100% of the time, then there's no time for them to spend 2 or 3 days and go, what did I learn this month? Ooh, we should tell the PMO that this step is eating a lot of time. It's unnecessary. Or
Mm.
we need to make a short training video. The new CCAs coming in, they're like not getting it. They're turning into auditors, and we're assessors. Like we need to make sure they understand the difference between auditing and assessing. Assessing, you're looking at what somebody presents to you and saying, is it sufficient to meet the requirement? Auditors are, hey, you showed me something, that's cool. I'm going to ask you 10 other questions to see if I can poke holes in it and break it, right? There's
Mm.
a different mindset. Now, certainly assessors have to dig in and follow the threads if somebody mentions something,
Right.
or
Right.
if the documentation's insufficient, or the artifacts or the interviews. Yeah, then you pull the thread. But natively, you're just assessing what's handed to you. You're not going and
Adequate
digging.
insufficiency. Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the same way, if we don't provide for our employees that bandwidth, and I'm suggesting it's like a little more than 15% of their time, they have to have bandwidth to think about how do they work on their job.
Yeah. That's really good. I want to ask you guys about your C3PO. How is it going? I mean, what is it? What you thought it would be? Because I know M&S for a long time, even back when we had some of the first clients that we Intelli and M&S worked on together from a consulting and preparatory perspective. Um, you guys had that ambition for a while, but now that you're there, is it what you guys thought it would be? Are there pain points?
Absolutely not.
Really? Okay, tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting thing. So when we did our original models to say, is this a wise business to get into? We looked at, so the government says it's going to take 200 hours. And how does that break up between the different people, right? Because we didn't have any actual data. Notionally, I would say, or anecdotally, we're seeing things take between 100 and 140 hours more typically than a 200-hour effort.
Mm.
But we were just trying to break it into swapping dollars for hours. Like it's going to be this many hours, and this is the hourly rate, and this is how it's going to work. The market's a lot more fluid right now, and it doesn't fit into a perfect model. Lots of new C3POs are coming in, and they're smaller businesses, and they don't understand what in government contracting we call the wrap rate. They don't understand advertising, marketing, project management, liability insurance, Bob drop, if you have 5 people and one person's going to drop their computer and destroy it every 6 months. So you have to build in that replacement cost and like all the little things that you learn. So we're seeing a lot of low price pressure and people filling their schedules quickly. We suspect it'll bounce back. But we really have to be adaptive and take the long view. We have more than 50 assessors working under MNS Group if you go to the Cyber AB. From number of assessors associated, I believe we are the largest C3PAO. Not from financial mass, right? There's billion-dollar companies out there doing this.
Yeah.
But from numbers of assessors working with us, I think we're the largest right now. And that is because,
I didn't know that.
So 20% of all the C3POs use our platform, Secure CMMC. So it's a Google-based platform just for delivering assessments, right? It's purpose-built for C3PAOs to deliver assessments. We have versions for OSCs, but originally that was its thing. All the STIGs, nation-state level security for an assessment organization. So we help the other C3POs also with humans, and they help us with humans, right? So it's symbiotic in that way, and a lot of this industry has been symbiotic. But when you ask, is it what we expected? No, we didn't know Secure CMMC was going to take off. We didn't know we'd have all these friendly C3POs we work with and support. So we didn't know we were going to have this huge pool of people that we can share back and forth so that we can all deliver our assessments really quickly. These are things that are really nice that we discovered. But our original plan was we thought, we'll hire people and we'll train them and we'll build a business. And it's grown much more quickly because we're open source. We share how we do things.
That's awesome. I guess that does lead me to ask, with you guys being larger and dealing with more CCAs, I mean, what maybe this is an onboarding question. What are you guys doing about all the differing interpretations and perspectives that are even still the case? Like, I was just having a conversation with somebody a couple months ago, and the assessor in their assessment, because we were supporting them some, was perfectly fine with just an export of Active Directory for 311. But then, you have me as a CCA, and then you have, people I've learned from and, that I'm close to, that probably
first of all, I'm not a CCA. I've taken the training, but I haven't taken the test.
Oh, okay.
I want to take the new test. I've been holding out. I might have to wait till the end of the year.
I know.
So I have taken the training.
Yeah.
I have taken the training, but I don't want any stolen valor, as it were.
Oh,
I am very, very knowledgeable. I'm very, very good, and I don't have that certification.
Good point. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But what are you doing from an onboarding perspective when you have, these are human beings with lots of ideas. We all have them. Yeah. And we're not always right. So what are you doing to be consistent? Because I'm assuming that that's come up.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question, and consistency is unobtainable until we get further guidance from the government or from the Cyber AB. So the next best thing to consistency is integrity. And why I say that is we want to have a lead CCA who is consistent and has integrity, and ultimately the whole ecosystem's designed that the lead CCA is the one who makes the call. Now, you or I, we might not agree with a given lead CCA's call in a situation.
Right.
If they're consistent in their application and understanding and they can support their viewpoint, until we get further guidance, it could be that they are as right as we are. Right?
Right.
I'll give you a concrete example. One of our clients is getting assessed by another C3PO that we don't have a connection to. And we have, as an MSP, right, we have a level 2 certificate. And this C3PO is not accepting full inheritance of the level 2. They're not accepting partial inheritance. They want us to provide all our artifacts for them to review also. I disagree with that. I don't think they should do that. Their client is going to have to pay for it because it's more time and effort, right? However, we're going to respect that lead CCA's request and give them the artifacts and evidence they're asking for. We don't think it's necessary. It's more expensive. Right. And they're the lead. We're going to comply because they're going to make the call for our client.
And it's kind of explicitly said in the cap not to be the case, but I
Well,
guess
some C3POs state consistently that they don't feel the cap is binding. I disagree with that. But there are some C3POs who will make statements about things not being found in rule and statute and where's the authority to bind and these questions. And these are all great things
fair.
that people are working through right now in
Right.
the committees. And
We're not,
it'll all
yeah.
settle out. But right now, you have to, if you have a lead CCA who's thoughtful and has integrity, we have lead CCAs who have very different opinions about certain things. But we have to trust our leads to be consistent. Where it's really frustrating for OSCs or for an MSP that's going to get an assessment is you don't, unless you put the homework in ahead of time, you don't know what the opinion is of a lead you're getting assigned to.
Right.
Yeah, so it's messy, and it's going to be cleaned up quickly. The committees are releasing guidance in the next month, right? This isn't like a forever mess. It's a very temporary mess,
Sure.
but it is messy.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I feel like we see it often. We see things that I sit there and talk with my internal team because we do some which help MSPs learn the field, implement things on their side so they can be ready for their certification or at least to support their OSC customers. And we see the same thing, but I think you're 100% right. This committee approach to letting actual practitioners get involved and say, guys, have you seen this interpretation that's going around in the industry? Do you not see how that leaves a big gaping hole or a big risk there, which is the whole reason that control exists in the first place? Like, I think you're right. I think we're gonna see a lot of improvement in there. I do wonder though, if you're the one hiring the CCAs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have like an internal wiki or anything like that for perspectives that have been debated on the team to say, okay, I agree, there's differences of opinion, but this is MNS's stance? Or are you really kind of dedicated to that idea of letting the lead CCA, you trusting them, because you wouldn't have hired them in the first place if you didn't trust them?
Half of our people are W-2, half are 1099.
Got it.
W-2s follow our policies, procedures, and practices and stances. And 1099s are 1099s because we trust them and they're known in the industry and they're smart people and they do a good job. We let them know our opinion, and we always say it is the lead assessor's responsibility and authority to make the call. Sometimes if we set a standard in a given area and we're so prescriptive, it doesn't allow the lead assessor then to take into account other compensating controls or things that are going on that may, from a prescriptive standpoint, cause a control objective to seem to be not met. But in light of all the other surrounding things, it actually is met.
Yeah.
So that's why we hesitate to actually be hyper prescriptive, because every company's story is a little different. Every set of documentation is a little different. I don't think everybody we interview goes through at least 2 of our existing lead CCAs. And our interviews are sometimes like what you would consider backwards. Like a lead CCA would come and say, hey, you invited us to join your group. Do you want to interview me? And we start off with asking our leads to say, well, what do you want to know about how we do assessments?
That's pretty cool. That's pretty employee trust focused. I kind of like that.
Yeah, it has to be. We're in a trust and relationship based industry, and we also want to make sure that we can learn. And so if a lead comes to us and asks us about our process, and then they go, well, why are you doing that? And then we say, that's a great question. We're happy to tell you. Why are you asking? Why are we doing that? Have we missed some nuance? Do we need to tune what we're doing? Do we need to improve? Is there a new memo we didn't hear about that hasn't appeared on LinkedIn miraculously within minutes of its release?
Yeah. Thanks, Jacob.
This is very much, it is, the whole industry should be, and as far as we approach it, this is not check the box compliance. This is muscle memory compliance. And, lots of ways to learn to do a handspring, but once you do the handspring, you're doing a handspring. And so we kind of look at it that way, you know.
Yeah, I really do agree with a more flexible approach. It's sometimes, obviously, it's hard when there are some pretty prescriptive things in the guidance, in the FAQs, all over the place. But I do generally agree that, like, so what you said earlier, an assessment as opposed to an audit should be with the intention or the disposition that we're here to make sure that the risks are mitigated. That's everything that we're doing here is risk mitigation. That's what cybersecurity is we're mitigating the risks to the confidentiality in this industry, or the integrity and availability of something. So if there's a letter of the law problem here, but we're doing things, like you said, in a compensating kind of way, I don't understand why there is so much, I guess, debate. I do worry, though, that could be taken to a logical end that would allow for risks not to be mitigated by allowing for flexibility, like the example I gave earlier, having a sheer export from Active Directory with no relationship to an HR platform or an approval process or an authorized user list externally, or it's something.
How do you know that Mickey Mouse on that list
exactly
is an authorized user?
Exactly.
Just because they exist doesn't mean they're authorized.
Exactly.
So, part of it's trust, but I will tell you there's a couple lead CCAs where we, after assessments, we trusted them and we decided, you're not the right fit for the way we do things.
Got it.
And we wish them the best and great success. We just have a philosophical difference on how to apply it. So I'm not saying we have no guardrails. We try to be really thoughtful and ask questions, and we learn. I think an important thing to consider for all of this is, ultimately, this program was just designed for the government to be sure people were doing what they said they were doing in their contracts. And that's all we're here to do, is to validate that you're doing what you said you'd do in your contract when you're an OSC. It's not looking for you to fail. It's looking for you to succeed.
Yeah, we want you to succeed.
Right.
That's all there is to it. Yeah. But we have to be honest when you're not succeeding.
Right. And I think I know I harp on this whole auditor thing, Stephen, but auditors are looking for failures in a system, or failures in a process, or failures to comply, or failures to do X, Y, Z, P, D, Q, right?
Right.
Assessors are looking for success. Show me the evidence, show me the artifacts, show me the interviews, show me the screen. Oh, whew, good, you're doing it. Met. Let's move on.
Yeah. That's a really good perspective. I don't know if I've ever. I've heard people, CCAs and C3POs talk about how their disposition is they want people to succeed. They want to don't be afraid of this assessment. Do what you say you're doing. We're gonna have no problems at all. Like, I've heard that, so I want to extend grace in every direction. But I don't know if I've ever heard that emphasis, that it's like, we start assuming that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And and I guess that makes sense, because that's how SPURS is calculated. That's how, that's a really good perspective. And I think that'll be helpful for anybody who is maybe a little apprehensive about, and to be honest, I've seen assessments where it felt like an audit. I'll just be blunt with you. But no, I like that perspective. And I think it's true. I think that's the whole goal. I did want to ask, since you guys have started your, if you're not open to answering this, that makes total sense. It's totally fine. But would you say that the vast majority of the OSCs that you guys are encountering are ready, are doing well and doing right?
When the rule was first published, we had 40% of the people who weren't going past phase 1. That number. But that's shrunk a lot since then.
Right.
Couple reasons. Again, this is anecdotal from the industry and only from the limited data set that we see.
Right.
We're encouraging people to get mock assessments ahead of time. People are starting to realize that make sure my 3s, 5s, and a subset of 1-point items are all rock solid. And if I'm iffy on the rest of the ones, proceed anyway, because you can get a conditional and remediate that in the next 6 months. I'm not saying you should desire to have a conditional,
Right.
but
Right.
make sure your 3s, 5s, and that subset of ones are all good, and that your team has muscle memory. They can answer the questions. They can go right to the screen when asked, or that the screenshots or documents are there and labeled down to the objective level. And when I say that, we always say, hey, you want an assessment? That's great. In your SSP for a given objective, if it's not listed in the SSP, do you list the document or spreadsheet or location, and then in that document or spreadsheet, what tab or column or page the response is, and in that page or in that tab, the exact location to where the response is. The reason for that is not just to make the assessor's job a lighter lift, right?
Which it does.
It does, but it also lets them map through and go, okay, wait, the assessor's going to, if I don't know where it is, how will I be able to tell the assessor, or how are they going to find it? And I love GRC tools. It's fantastic. You guys have the best, I think. And you didn't pay me to say that.
I didn't.
Listen, there's other great ones, and I'm not going to
Yep.
list off their names here
Yep.
because I'm one with you. But
Hey, we're
it's
okay
not
with
that
that.
there aren't other ones, but at the basic level, the human, if they're relying just on the GRC, that's not the best situation. They need to have memory and muscle memory. They need to know the stuff they're responsible for.
100%.
And so our question always is, or somebody say, oh, I can't afford a GRC. All right, you want a spreadsheet with 320 things? That's fine. Objective, directory, file name, page, paragraph, human who's responsible for it. I mean, if they want to do all that by hand, they can do that.
Yeah.
But I think that the OSCs are starting to realize that they need that sort of chain to allow assessors to find the evidence or the artifacts that allow them to say, great, you've met it.
Yeah, that is so important. So for whoever's listening, we have the same exact advice. I think you and I are on the same wavelength with this. The people who are going to be in your assessment, just putting it bluntly out there on the table, they and the DoD and the CAP and every documentation and guidance related to assessments, it's all the same. They need to be somebody who knows what's going on. You cannot have somebody who's trying to fill a seat for this assessment as the point of contact, or the person answering these questions trying to shoot from the hip and hopefully being able to read your SSP and hopefully get through it and stumble their way through it. It is going to cause so many problems. And we do so one of the, to your point, we take the evidence plan from the original JSVA DivCAC days. You remember that?
Yeah.
That original document that a lot of C3POs are still using, and rightfully
so. We still use it.
Yeah, and it's great. It's wonderful. And we have them add a column to that. If they're not obviously doing it in Intelli, we have them add a column that just says, create yourself a little playbook for whoever's responsible for answering this question. What's the playbook for responding to interview questions and demoing it?
Mm-hmm.
Give them the exact instructions and pick the thing that will pass the requirement. And then you wait, let the assessor decide whether they want to see something else or not. And the majority of times, to your point, they don't. And you've shown them what they want to see. And you've just made the assessment, instead of a 5-day long situation, which was what it was at the beginning, mm-hmm. when there was a lot less familiarity with the requirements and stuff. You've shrunk that down to 2 to 3 days, maybe. I mean, just because you're ready, very ready. That's what we say.
Yeah, I would say, again, anecdotal, because maybe it's just the way we're doing it. The actual week where there's on-sites, if it's a single location, we're usually done Wednesday afternoon.
Exactly.
If people are prepared. If there's multiple locations and you have to travel, maybe it takes all week. But
yeah. Well, what's you don't have to say names or anything, but what has felt like most recently the longer end of assessments, and what would you say as being the shorter range? Like, what can people expect if they were to come to you for an assessment? Like, what are you guys seeing right now? Like, most recently, I know it changed over time because everybody's getting more familiar, but
I mean, if you take if you take out the longest and the shortest, it's usually Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning that people are closing out. That is just what we're seeing. Um, there's always edge cases and weird stuff, right? Because every business is different. Or maybe maybe an assessor. We always try to match assessors so that they have some familiarity with the type of business that they're assessing. Like
Yeah.
maybe you don't want the guy who's an expert in manufacturing or additive manufacturing assessing, a software development company. Like
Yeah. That wouldn't be
there's
great.
a lot to learn, right? And a
Yeah.
chance that they may misconstrue a given practice and its effectiveness in the software world as opposed to a manufacturing world. There's things like that where sometimes you do run into I. It's new, so assessors are. I haven't run into this before. You know, I didn't know there was a flying whatchamacallit widget hoojama thingy, and now I have to understand that, right?
Yeah. Because it's on the network.
It's
You
on the
know?
network, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. So I just wanted to pivot a little bit to your
Sure.
all's MSP practice. We talked a lot about your C3PO efforts, and if you have anything else you want to share about that, feel free. But I know that Frank had talked to us a lot about, okay, how are we talking about MNS? How are we going to support OSCs in a very specific way? And I remember one of the first engagements we worked on and collaborated on together. Um, you guys were their MSP, but this was kind of before you guys had formalized your CMMC kind of services as an
Yeah.
MSP. So, what would it look like engaging with MNS Group as the MSP, and you can talk as high level as you want, or specifically, what are the things that set you guys apart as an MSP more than just IT services? Do you guys do compliance as a service elements and documentation maintenance and things like what does that look like to engage with M&S?
Yeah. So from an MSP perspective, once we got our stuff together, which was painful, like figuring out how to do it, right?
Yeah.
And training people, and we got our level 2, and we standardized delivery. We standardized around GCC and GCC High. Then we added Google FedRAMP High. Now we can also do Oracle. Eventually, we'll do IBM. Amazon's not something that we claim specialty with. We'll add it eventually, but they were a little behind the curve originally, and now they're catching up.
Yeah.
When in the world of like talking about businesses, there's this term sometimes they use, like, what's your moat? What is the thing that makes you special? That's kind of like, what
Mm.
can't people get across? Um, I don't know that there's something we do that no one else does, but what I do know is we decided to stop doing project work for clients that weren't recurring revenue monthly clients. We learned that coming in and doing a one-time project to get somebody ready left them with an impression that they were ready to pass or that they could continue to pass. And so
Without the
much of
Kanban and all that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so much of CMMC is about the daily life and the change in the way, in the cadence in which you operate your business. Physical security, operational security, cybersecurity, like the technology pieces, like, I mean, to be super simplified, it's like 1/3. It's probably slightly more, but right.
Yeah.
But the physical security, operational security, and documenting all of those things, having regular meetings, we realized that we were telling clients they might succeed by buying a set of scripts that we run over several weeks and put a bunch of technical controls in place and give them some default documents. And, oh, you
Mm.
want to take it from here? Great. So we decided to stop doing that because we didn't want to inadvertently attach our name to somebody failing or have them get upset at us that, hey, I didn't make it through.
Mm.
So we shrunk that so that we only do ongoing compliance for our MSP clients. I think that was a major change because many MSPs do project work for their clients or for others. Um, if somebody out there owns an MSP, they probably get at least 2 emails a week with some random Joe saying that he's really wealthy and wants to buy your MSP, and he promises to take care of all your people, and he's just personally looking for a company to invest in, because there's like a million of these little investment companies that are
Yeah.
trying to buy MSPs. Um, and they'll go, oh, you should have 70% reoccurring revenue and 30% project work at a minimum. Those numbers don't that
That's
doesn't
not
work.
your goal.
That's not our goal. We don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We will have project work internally, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, our thing is when you buy MSP services, we also sell compliance as a service and a compliance team that's led by CCAs. And those CCAs are involved in your policies, procedures, practices, and your technical settings and your support. So it's very holistic, and we only have one price. Like, we don't have different levels. We don't have the gold, silver, platinum. We have this is what we do, and we do a great job of it. And we hope it works for you. And if it doesn't, that's totally cool. There's legion, the number of offerings out there that might be a better match for some companies. But what we know is, for service excellence, we want to sell our MSP, either Enclave or Enterprise, with compliance with it.
Right. And just to push back just a little bit, I don't feel like there are a lot of, you have the MSP collective, right? That's being that you guys are on, right? And then there's a handful of others, but I still think it's under like 30 to 40 MSPs that are actually taking this seriously. And I think the way that you articulated, just speaking again, I'm biased to you guys because I love you guys and all that stuff, but just to the listener, it's not as easy to find an MSP who takes it and articulates it like that. There are several out there, and I do want to encourage companies looking for MSPs to help support them long term. That it does, from what I've seen, MNS does have a pretty robust CMMC MSP practice. It's one thing to be an amazing IT white glove company. That's one thing, and that's very important, right? Because you don't want your information system just puttering out because nobody's taking care of it. It's another thing entirely to do it in a way that's not going to screw you during your assessment.
Yeah,
and that's the big thing. I think we've IntelliGRC and MNS have been talking. We talked about your CRM before with other clients and stuff like that. Like, we've been there from the start, and I think it's kind of limited how many actual MSPs, other than maybe the 30 or 40 that we see, are actually taking this seriously, just being blunt.
Well, I appreciate that, Stephen. What I would say for anybody who's shopping MSPs and you're a government contractor, you're always looking at your wrap rates and what it costs you to deliver services so that you can get cost recovery from the government, have some sort of reasonable profit, and run your business. Having MSP, so we are a government contractor, and our sister company has a facility clearance. So we eat the soup we sell. We know what it's like, and whether or not you build in a traditional MSP wrap rate and you're putting in $2,000 a year per an employee, or something in that range, a CMMC rate would add $1,000 to that, or maybe $1,500 more, right? So you already are doing stuff. You're already having computers and patching and support and MSP services incrementally. If you haven't been doing the CMMC stuff and you have to add it, you're going to add that much. But if you've been doing it and you're just going to document things, that shouldn't be a massive hit to your wrap rate and to your expenses. If your MSP doesn't understand how their fee affects your wrap rate, keep asking, find some more MSPs. Ultimately, this compliance expense has to be structured in such a way that the cost is somewhat recoverable for the contractor. And there are specific things that you have to know as an MSP in the structure of your agreements and the way you deliver service, and tie it to what your client is doing. I guess maybe that would be one of our really not secret sauce, but it's an advantage. We understand that world, and a lot of MSPs are focused on a business model where they can give you the best price by efficiency and selling licensing, which is cool. That's the MSP world, but we try to align it with the contract.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it is such an advantage to know the industry. I feel like again, I've talked to from a consulting perspective on our side, I've talked to several contractors who have an MSP and an MSP that knows about CMMC and wants to do it right, but doesn't have experience with it. So yeah, I really resonate with that. I wanted to ask you, do you have any specific things that you're hoping will evolve in the ecosystem from a guidance perspective for MSPs for their use of cloud service provider tools, and anything that's going to make your customers' lives better by using you guys? Anything that's still so ambiguous that you're kind of hoping we'll get some clarity on? That's a very leading question.
In the beginning, or closer to the beginning of this conversation, we talked about the idea of inheritance for a level 2 certificate for an MSP, and sort of there's FedRAMP inheritance. I'm looking forward to a more refined set of guidance around that could allow us as an assessor to lower the cost of assessment. If we get more explicit guidance that we can accept certain things, and not only that we can, but that we should, that could reduce the amount of time and ultimately the cost for assessments. I see prices in the market from $30,000 to more than $100,000. The more typically in that $30,000 to $60,000 range. That's kind of what I'm seeing.
That's what we see too. Yep.
Right, and so that all ties back to hourly rates and the burden of those hourly people. So I'm just looking forward to guidance from the committees, from the Cyber AB, and from the Department of War. The FedRAMP is opening up. They now announce, you're not going to need a sponsor to go through the process, which is that has some difficulties as far as paperwork, but still it's going to really increase the number. And we're up to now 500 plus cloud providers that are on the fedramp.gov website. So looking forward to having 1,000 so that all our clients can have more choices in things that are inheritable, and thus that the assessment's going to be less expensive. That's really where the gray areas are for us. Is we would like to, with confidence and integrity, accept other people's statuses. And we need that guidance because ultimately every company like ours, Stephen, has insurance. And the insurance wants to know that we're properly running a practice. And so they'll cover us, right? It's about risk for each business.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I was kind of hinting at with that leading question is, we have the cap. I know that there's the conversation about it not being binding, and we have the 32 CFR. In like the way that FedRAMP tools, like actually authorized tools are treated, I feel like should be the way that an MSP with an actual level 2 certification should be treated, right? Like if you get the body of evidence with the CRM and the assessor is able to validate that you're doing your part, Mr. Customer, of the CRM, they're generally supposed to accept the actual authorization for everything that happens on the cloud service. Like nobody from the cloud service provider has to show up to your assessment, like an MSP, even with this level 2 certification does. So I really agree with that. And I'm kind of hoping and looking forward to the same thing, because I think that is going to be the logical conclusion, Lord willing, that, we'll have these committees come along and say, yeah, there's cyber, they have cyber insurance, they have all these things. And then they, at the end of the day, if they have that level 2 certification, they've been through the ringer, right? At least in some sense. So I totally agree.
The counter argument is important to consider, which is that a level 2 assessment is at a specific date or point in time,
right?
And and FedRAMP has monthly, right? Their checks.
Yeah.
However, the assessor can spot check the things that are fully inherited, and just verify that they're being done on behalf of the client. A spot check is okay, and and expected, like you would do that anyway. But I really think that's where clarity. I would love some more clarity there. The ISO standards are now being applied at the Cyber AB level and at the C3POs. So there's also some new things that come from ISO world that people aren't quite getting their heads around yet, in terms of what you're allowed to or not allowed to do in an assessment. So ISO does bring some more required consistency to the delivery, and that'll that'll all shake out here in the next 6 months. I think there'll be a new badge for people who have their ISO status versus just being authorized. It'll have some different colors. I don't know what
Right.
they are yet. I've just been told it's going to be different, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that we could both agree that the main thing that we're all looking forward to is just guidance that will lead to consistency in
Yeah.
assessments. Because we both said the same thing. I feel like I've seen 10, 15 plus assessments in my consulting career that have varied from minor differences in the way people look at things and do things, the process, even how they follow the cap, to very, very, very different perspectives between assessors and between the way they do things. So I've seen an assessment take a day. That's kind of tough for me to, me not being the one in their shoes. Again, I want to be empathetic, but it's kind of tough for me to feel like I could justify that. But, at the same time, I know everybody's on this journey, and there's not a lot of guidance. There's nothing in the cap that says it has to be 3 days or 2 days or whatever. So yeah, I get it. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thought. The guidance will help. And what's being done now is being done with integrity by and large, So
100%.
I think
100%.
I think people are trying to be as efficient as they can.
Yeah.
There's nothing more expensive to an OSC than their people sitting around waiting for an assessor to ask a question rather than working on the thing it is that OSC really does to feed themselves.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. Anything that we can do to lower the cost for the OSC, but also just make it consistent would be great. Well, I guess I do want to ask you a couple more things.
Sure.
Do you have any specific things that you desire for not just customers of yours, but just people in the industry to focus on from a you see common gaps or anything like that you're like, man, if I had the world in front of me to give some guidance, this is my opportunity. So anything like that, any common problems that you're seeing or misinterpretations that you'd like to maybe address, and then I'd love to know what you've got going on this week, any hobbies, anything like that. You talked about your kids, so that's awesome. By the way, that family meeting is a great idea.
Okay, so let me start by telling you a story. Once there were two candy shop owners across the street from each other. And the one candy shop owner, just had the most amazing recipe. He worked so hard. He thought he had done a great job. But every day he only had a couple people coming in the door. And where the cash register was by the front window. And he could look across the street, and he saw the candy shop across the street had a line halfway down the block every morning when it opened. And he was just so frustrated. He's like, I have great candy. My sign's right here. They're across the street. There's a long line. Why don't they cross the street and come to me? He had all these questions in his head. So one day, this is not busy. He closes the door. Be back in 15 minutes. He walks across the street and just kind of leans by the door and just trying to hear, what's going on inside the shop. He doesn't hear anything different. People are coming in. They get their candy and they're leaving. As the line shortens, he's, a little distracted. And suddenly the owner of the other shop walks outside and says, hey, I noticed, you're not in your shop across the street. You're next to my shop. What's going on? And he's a little embarrassed, right? He's been caught listening to the competition, right? And he said, look, I'm a little ashamed to say it, but, I'm feeling a little jealous. I've worked really hard. I think my candy's great. I'm sure yours is too, but I really like mine. Why? What are you doing? I just don't understand. And the guy said, I want to share with you my secret of success. And the first shopkeeper is a little bit taken back, and he goes, okay. And guys, every time I weigh out candy, I put my thumb on the scale on the side where the weight is, and I throw a couple extra pieces on just in case my scale's off so that everybody gets all the candy they paid for. That's it. That's the only thing different I do. So he's like, I mean, I'm not sure it was smart of you to tell me, but great. Thank you for that. So he goes back across the street. He starts doing the same thing. Sure enough, several months later, he has a line and his business is booming. And he starts to feel a little guilty because he's like, man, I took that guy's business idea. I'm sure he's suffering. Like now I have the line. So one evening he goes across and he's like, look, I feel a little bad. I took your advice. I'm doing great. There's a line out my door. And the first shop owner goes, my business has grown also. It didn't shrink.
Mm.
And that this is a story from really ancient times. And back then it was about dates. But I'm saying a candy store. There's a principle where helping other people is not subtracting from your own business and your own success. And
Hmm.
the CMMC ecosystem has been very friendly in that way. Now that it's launched, there's a few people who are new who didn't come in that way, but MNS Group and a lot of the C3POs, even you guys are friendly with other tools that do the same thing you do, and your friend you go
Yeah.
out for a beer with those guys, right? Um, we believe in helping other MSPs and helping OSCs, irrespective of whether it benefits us. When Brian Hubbard and I helped launch MSP CyberX, and we were trying to give away,
I saw that.
right, we were running a nonprofit to help MSPs get compliant. It didn't work out. We didn't get enough sponsors to be able to keep giving all that stuff away. Um, a huge difference for MNS Group is if you're an MSP out there and you want to know how we did it, call us. We'll help you. There needs to be more compliant MSPs. We don't believe that it subtracts from our business to help others succeed. There's always enough business for people who are operating with integrity and working towards excellence. So if you want to know, we're here for you.
Yeah, I love that. And that is we totally agree. There's so much business to go. What's the phrase? Rising tide raises all ships or something like that.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we have that perspective too. Obviously, we got to do what we got to do. What's best for our business, right? To keep our families going and provide for our families. But yeah, I think that the CMC ecosystem has been a model in many ways for what it means to have a charitable disposition when it comes to the businesses in it. Obviously, there are individuals that
Sure.
we
Right.
we want to stand together and make sure people are informed properly and stand against the misinformation. But I really appreciate that perspective. Any hobbies you guys or things you got going on coming up?
So I DJ on the side.
What? You DJ?
So
Send me a mixtape, big dog.
I'm sitting next to two CDJ 3000s, and I have uh, a mixer, and so when I need to de-stress, I'll sit here and mix some songs up and add some beats and play with them and do mashups. So that's a fun thing that I do
Awesome.
as a hobby. And other than that, I love history, especially things about the formation of monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam.
Yep.
I like to know all of the things about their writings and not leaving out the Sikhs, who are also monotheistic. But I like to see that pattern through culture and through society, and study that. And I like reading ancient books and documents. So
That's so cool. That's so cool. Like I said, I could spend hours on that, but I can't
right,
do that on this podcast. So
right, yeah, not enough time. So yeah, that's just like picture into what I do to occupy my mind and try to keep sharp. And I love going and speaking and helping people with CMMC. We
yeah.
don't charge for that. That part of why I'm here is just trying to be useful and help people succeed.
Well, I do hope people found it helpful. I felt it was helpful and insightful. So I really appreciate Toby. Where can people get up with you, get up with MNS? Any contact information you'd like them to use?
Sure. So you can hit LinkedIn. Think of it like texting. Hit me up there. My email address is just Toby at mnsgroup.com. TOBY. Toby or not Toby? That is the question. So if you don't hear back from me, it probably means that I'm in the weeds. Just keep knocking on the door. I'm not ignoring you. And ultimately, mnsgroup.com. And if we're not the right people, we probably know the right people and we'll try to connect you with them.
All right, Toby. Thank you again so much. And everybody be on the lookout for the next one.
Thank you, Stephen.